Part 1. When everything looked unbreakable. For centuries, the Roman Empire felt eternal. Its roads connected continents. Its laws shaped daily life. Its armies stood everywhere. People believed Rome would never fall. Children were born Roman. Merchants traded under Roman protection. Soldiers trusted Roman power. The empire was not just strong. It felt normal. That is how empires last. They do not fall when people are afraid. They fall when people feel safe. Rome controlled land, money, food, and movement. It ruled cities far from Italy. Different languages, different cultures, one system. From the outside, Rome looked perfect, but inside small cracks were forming. Not dramatic, not loud, easy to ignore. Power concentrated in fewer hands. Loyalty shifted from ideas to individuals. Short-term decisions replaced long-term vision. Most people did not notice. Why would they? Life continued. Markets opened. Armies marched. Taxes were collected. The empire still worked. Rome did not collapse in one moment. It began to weaken while still standing. One Roman writer warned, "The greater the empire, the heavier the burden." But warnings rarely stop momentum. At its height, Rome expanded faster than it could protect. Borders stretched. Costs grew. Leadership changed too often. Still, the illusion remained. Rome is strong. Rome is eternal. Rome will adapt. That belief delayed action, and delay is dangerous, because empires do not fall when they are attacked. They fall when they no longer understand themselves. This is the story of how Rome began to lose balance, slowly, quietly, while the world still believed it would last forever. Part 2. Power without direction. The Roman Empire was still huge. Its cities were rich. Its armies were strong. Its name was feared. But something had changed. Rome no longer knew who should lead. Emperors came and went quickly. Some ruled for years, others for months. Some were chosen for wisdom. Many were chosen by force. Power stopped being a responsibility. It became a prize. Generals fought for the throne. Soldiers followed money, not ideas. Loyalty shifted from Rome to individuals. This was new. In the past, Rome believed in duty, in service, in limits. Now, ambition moved faster than law. One Roman historian wrote, "When the army chooses the emperor, the state is already sick." People felt the instability. Laws changed often. Taxes increased. Corruption spread quietly. Officials cared more about survival than justice. Still, life continued. That was the illusion. Rome did not collapse because people rebelled. It weakened because trust disappeared. Citizens stopped believing that the system protected them. Provinces felt distant. Local leaders began to act independently. Rome was still powerful, but it was no longer united. When direction is lost, strength becomes dangerous. Armies without purpose turn inward. Power without limits becomes chaos. The empire spent more energy protecting itself than from enemies. And while Rome argued about who should rule, something else was happening. The borders were watching, waiting. Part 3. When the world pushed back. For a long time, Rome believed the danger was inside. Bad emperors, greedy officials, political chaos. But slowly, the real pressure began to come from outside. Beyond the borders, the world was changing. Tribes that Rome once ignored were learning. They watched Roman tactics. They understood Roman weaknesses. They were no longer disorganized groups. They became moving societies. They did not want Rome's cities. They wanted Rome's land, and sometimes Rome's protection. Rome tried to respond. More soldiers were needed. More forts were built. More taxes were collected. The army grew, but not stronger. It became expensive. To pay soldiers, Rome reduced the value of its money. Coins contained less silver. Prices rose. Trust in currency weakened. People noticed. Farmers struggled. Trade slowed. Cities felt pressure. The system still worked, but with effort. Rome was fighting on too many fronts. In the north, tribes pushed the borders. In the east, rival empires challenged control. Inside, resources were stretched thin. Rome had expanded faster than it could defend. One Roman general admitted, "We are guarding borders that no longer protect us." Another problem appeared quietly. The army changed. In the past, Roman soldiers were citizens. They fought for land, honor, and Rome itself. Now, many soldiers were hired from outside the empire. They fought for pay. This was not betrayal, it was logic, but it changed loyalty. When payment stopped, loyalty stopped. Rome became dependent on people who did not feel Roman. At the same time, leadership weakened. Decisions were reactive, not strategic. Emperors focused on short-term survival, not long-term stability. Fix the crisis, delay the collapse, move the problem forward. That became the pattern. Meanwhile, ordinary people adapted. Some left cities. Some relied on local leaders instead of Rome. Some stopped expecting protection from the center. Rome was still there. Its symbols remained. Its laws existed, but its presence felt distant. The empire was no longer a shared identity. It was an administration. And administrations fail when people stop believing in them. Rome did not fall because enemies were strong. It began to fall because it could no longer hold everything together: money, borders, loyalty, and belief at the same time. Pressure from the outside revealed weakness on the inside, and once weakness is visible, history moves quickly. Part 4. When protection became an invitation. Rome was tired. The empire had been fighting for too long. Soldiers were exhausted. Money was thin. Borders were wide and difficult to control. So Rome made a choice. It chose compromise. Instead of fighting every group outside the borders, Rome began to invite some of them in. At first, this seemed smart. Whole tribes were allowed to settle inside the empire. They were given land. In return, they promised loyalty. They promised to defend Rome from other enemies. These people were not prisoners, they were guests. Rome believed it could absorb them, as it had absorbed others before. Give them Roman law, Roman order, Roman identity. But this time was different. The empire no longer had the strength to integrate them fully. Local Roman officials lost control. Communication broke down. Promises were misunderstood or ignored. Payments arrived late. Food ran out. Tension grew. One Roman writer warned, "We call them allies, but we treat them like tools." The newcomers felt betrayed. They lived inside Roman borders, but outside Roman trust. When conflict began, Rome responded slowly. The army was stretched. Leadership argued. Responsibility shifted from one office to another. No one acted in time. In one moment that shocked the ancient world, Rome was defeated by people it had invited in. This was not just a military loss. It was psychological. For centuries, Rome had been the protector, the authority, the center. Now, it looked vulnerable. After that, more groups moved closer. Some asked for protection. Others came with force. Rome could no longer say no. Walls still stood. Laws still existed. But control was fading. Rome had once shaped the world. Now, the world was reshaping Rome, and the empire faced a painful truth. When you cannot protect your system, you cannot control who enters it. Part 5. The Day Rome Was Silent. For more than 800 years, Rome had not been touched. Cities had fallen. Provinces had changed hands. But Rome itself remained. People believed one thing: Rome could not be entered. In the year 410, that belief ended. A foreign army stood before the city. Negotiations failed. Promises broke. And then the gates opened. Rome was entered by force. Led by Alaric, the invaders moved through the streets of the Eternal City. Temples were looted. Homes were destroyed. People fled in panic. The city was not burned to the ground, but it was humiliated. For the first time in centuries, Rome looked weak. The shock traveled fast. Across the empire, people reacted with disbelief. Some refused to accept it. Others felt fear. If Rome could fall, what was safe? A Roman writer asked in despair, "If Rome has fallen, what still stands?" This moment did not end the empire, but it ended an idea, the idea of invincibility. After that day, Rome was no longer the center of the world. Authority shifted. Power fragmented. Local rulers gained importance. The empire became a shadow of itself. Rome still had emperors, still had laws, still had history, but it no longer had certainty. The fall of the city was not just a military event. It was psychological. People stopped believing in Rome as a protector, and when belief disappears, systems collapse from the inside. The empire would continue for decades in the West, but something essential had already died: the myth. Part 6. What remained after the empire? The Roman Empire did not disappear in one day. There was no final explosion. No single moment when everything ended. It faded. After the sack of Rome, emperors continued to rule. Laws were still written. Coins were still used. But power kept moving away from the center. Local rulers became more important than Rome. Armies followed generals, not emperors. People depended on nearby protection, not distant authority. In the year 476, the last emperor in the West was removed. There was no great battle, no dramatic speech. History simply turned the page. For many people, life did not change suddenly. Farmers still worked the land. Traders still traveled. Cities still existed. But something essential was gone. The idea of a single order, a shared system, a center that held everything together. Rome had once connected the world. Now, the world became fragmented. And yet, Rome did not truly vanish. Its roads remained. Its laws influenced future systems. Its language shaped new ones. Even after the empire fell, Roman ideas continued to live. In government, in architecture, in law, in how people understood citizenship and duty. Rome failed not because it was weak, but because it became too complex to control, too large to protect, too expensive to maintain. Its fall reminds us of something important. Power does not disappear when armies lose. It disappears when trust fades. Empires fall slowly, quietly, while people are still living their daily lives. And that is why their stories matter. They help us understand how systems rise, how they grow, and how they end. Now, I want to ask you something. Are stories from ancient times interesting to you? Do you want to hear more about lost empires, kings, queens, and forgotten worlds? Write in the comments what topics you would like to see next. Ancient civilizations, powerful dynasties, famous rulers, or stories about wealth and influence. Your ideas help shape the next stories on this channel. Thank you for listening and for staying until the end.
Thanks! Please subscribe and like. Spin a new yarn with us every week. See you there!